Hey, Peter.
Hey, man.
How many keys do you have on your keychain currently?
I don't have a keychain, to tell you the truth.
How do you get in your house?
I'm minimalist.
I'm Adam Maness.
I'm Peter Martin.
You're listening to the You'll Hear It podcast.
Daily jazz advice coming at you.
Coming at you, today's episode of the You'll Hear It podcast is sponsored by the Oxford American. Make sure to take a minute to visit oxfordamerican.org/YHI. You'll find a curated collection of music content, including an interview with Les McCann, a video feature about a lifelong collector of 78 RPMs, and an in-depth story on John Coltrane, Thelonious Monk, many other jazz greats. Again, that's oxfordamerican.org/YHI. And be sure to sign up for the Oxford American's e-newsletter so that you don't miss out on any important announcements, events, or other musical happenings in the Oxford American universe. Have you signed up for the newsletter yet?
I'm signing up as we speak.
And you're doing that at oxfordamerican.org/YHI?
I sure am. Because I already know this is going to be one of those newsletters. You know, you get excited about something, you sign up for the newsletter, and then a few months later, you're trying to find that unsubscribe button.
Yeah, not this one.
Too many times. I have the feeling this is not going to be that type because their content is just so compelling. Every time I sit down with the magazine or look at their wonderful website, which has some of the articles and synopsis and links to music and YouTube videos and stuff, it's so thoughtfully put together. And so I think in a day and age when we're kind of flooded with basically crap in our email inbox, it's going to be nice to kind of get something from some wonderful source that we love and appreciate.
Yeah, the Oxford American, it's like anti-crap.
Right.
Exactly. Stuff you actually want.
Exactly.
Well, I mentioned keys in our brilliantly improvised opening because we had a question from an email. This is from Christopher in New Orleans. He says, "Hi, love the You'll Hear It podcast. I came across it a couple weeks ago, and it's now becoming a part of my break routine when I need to give my ears a rest in the studio." Well, it's not actually restful on your ears, but I'm a music.
That soothing?
I'm a music producer, hip hop and R&B predominantly. While guitar is my primary instrument, piano/keyboard has been becoming more and more a part of my day to day over the couple years as I get more work as a producer. The only time I really practice piano, though, is if I need to record a part. Then I'm just practicing that one part slowly until I'm comfortable playing it at tempo, and this does absolutely nothing for my overall sound. I studied jazz in college and was mentored by a local jazz musician in New Orleans through high school, so I'm pretty good with theory and figuring out what I'm hearing in my head and applying that to the piano. My issue is, when I'm playing, I'm always hesitating and searching for the notes while playing changes, which makes my timing pretty choppy and limits my creativity for the most part. It's like my hands consistently fall behind my ears, and I get stuck playing the same boring shapes and voicings I'm comfortable with. I'm comfortable playing in E flat, and I frequently resort to transposing my keyboard so the key of the tune I'm working on plays an E flat on that keyboard.
Ooh, epic fail.
That's the shameful correct solution to my problem, LOL. So my question is
no LOL.
Yeah,
straight shame.
My question is, what would be your practice/exercise suggestions for muscle memory in my hands so I'm not stuck and limited to one position? I hope I explained the issue well enough for you guys to understand it. Also, I'm in the 7 ways to begin a tune episode, but I can't find that. We'll cover that later. But that's Chris from New Orleans. And so
what's up, Chris from the Crescent City?
That's right. And we'll stick to this question of the keys. And it is, in fact, shameful to be transposing on the keyboard.
Well,
what do you do when you get an old Kranich and Bach in front of you?
I know. I mean, it's I think it's shameful like the same way it's amount of shame as if you want to translate a letter that you're writing into another language and you just go to Google Auto Translate. Your quality's not going to be that good.
There's no shame in that game.
Oh, there's not? Okay. Well, no, but then you try to pass it off as the real deal.
Oh, I get you. Yeah.
A little bit of understanding might come through, but you're kind of using technology in a way not to really develop your own skills, which is really what this is about. And I think this thing, I think you mentioned something about how do you get out of the same boring shapes and voicings. So on the piano, and I would imagine to a certain degree on the guitar, to a great degree, transposing, auto transposing is not, you're not going to get out of the same shapes because you're going to be playing the same ones.
That's right.
So a little bit of just old school repetition is what you're going to need so that you can get, as you know, as Chris said, his hands are behind his ears, and didn't he kind of say that?
Yeah.
So there needs to be some kind of methodology to how you're going to go through and practice, and I think that's what he's asking. But it's like you also have to be realistic in how much you can add. You can't just say, okay, I want to learn all 12 keys. I'm only comfortable with a few small, set of boring, what I would consider boring voicings, but I also want to be able to play them in all keys, and I want to be able to hear them as I play by the end of the week.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what computer algorithm. You can program a computer maybe to do that, but you can't get it so that you have that internalized, and your hands, you have the muscle memory, the ears, the connection, the taste, the understanding to be able to execute all of those. But within 3 months or so, I would say with some nice 20 to 30 minutes of practice on voicings, I think you can develop an interesting palette pretty much in all keys, of basic but good voicings, wouldn't you say? That's realistic?
I would totally agree. And I think the key to this is to be discerning, to find the voicings that in the key of E flat that you like, not shapes that you're bored with, but take them around to all keys. And you could start slow. Take them to keys close to E flat.
Yeah.
Or keys that you get called to play on a lot, if you're doing, hip hop and R&B sessions, that could be sharp keys. That could be more flat keys. But whatever it is, start out taking it in chunks. Like you said, it's not going to happen overnight, but take one little idea and try to run it around the keys in a time that allows you to actually absorb it.
Yeah.
And be discerning. You don't have to take everything that you do in E flat around all 12 keys. Now is the time to start whittling out what you don't want to take around in all 12 keys.
Right.
Get it out of your playing,
What not to play.
What not to play.
In the words of the great Christian McBride about talking about bass lines, I can tell you a few things not to do.
Yeah, and
that's going to get you to the promised land even quicker.
And one of those is transposing the keyboard so that you're always playing in E flat. No, but here's the thing. I think one problem here, one solution solves the other problem as well, because the whole my hands aren't catching up with my brain thing, that's because you can only play in the key of E flat.
Right.
You start getting proficient in even just 6 other keys.
Yeah.
Right? Your hands will be way quicker on even E flat. You know what I mean? You start understanding the relationships of the intervals better. Your fingers become better aligned with the keyboard because you have to play in E, you have to play in A or whatever. I think one hand shakes the other for these two problems.
Absolutely. And I think that, let's just be clear too, and I would just say there's actually no shame in this idea of transposing the voicings if you can only play them, if you're kind of doing that for professional reasons, like you're producing something and you need to be in another key and you just can't play it yet.
Yeah, that's
so it's like you got to separate that out. And I think that we, probably the common times that you and I encounter this is in maybe composing or arranging or arranging when you're on a deadline and you just go to somebody else's score, copy and paste and put it in your own. No, I'm joking. I'm just checking to see if you're listening right now.
Whoa.
No, but I mean, that would be the equivalent of like, I don't have time to write it, so I'm going to go grab him. So now you get into some legal jeopardy.
I wonder why that arrangement sounds so close to a Nelson Riddle arrangement. That's weird.
Right. No, but I think what it would be, there's certain things. Well, for instance, like you're going to do a gig in like half an hour, and the singer's like, oh, I want to do, Fly Me to the Moon in A. And you don't really know Fly Me to the Moon. Maybe you kind of know it in F, but you don't feel confident being able to do it in A. I would say if you're at a certain point, maybe kind of go for it, but you might need to bust out the and I pride myself on never using these, but I have seen them, and I play with them. The real book where you can change on the app the key so it shows it to you as opposed to transposing it. If you got to do it for the gig, you got to do it, but then at least make a note of that you're going to practice. First of all, that you're going to really learn the tune, because if you don't really know the tune, it's very hard to kind of hear it and transpose it at the same time, right?
Yeah, the real book thing, I think that's a level down from the keyboard thing. I think it's part of the same family,
right?
But I do
think
even
more shameful or less?
No, less shameful.
Oh,
a little bit, because you're
still
have
a wall of shame here.
Yeah, exactly. We should actually make a wall of shame. But the keyboard thing, I'm on the fence about this, because I hear what you're saying. It's a professional situation. You want it to sound good, but also it's like, I feel like if you're really going to get this, Chris, you're going to have to fail every once in a while in a key you're not comfortable in. And sometimes the only time to do that is in some kind of performance or just a situation where it matters,
Yeah. But I mean, I also think that we, in a professional situation, you have to kind of put the best product forward. You have to put yourself in a position. You don't want to be lazy.
No, that's true.
But you don't want to be so aggressive. Like, you have to think about like what is the end result. You want to get through the tune, support the singer, play a good song, whatever. And but you're right. I mean, you're not going to grow. I mean, you can push yourself if you're disciplined when you practice, but that takes a lot. And I mean, I really struggle with that in terms of, as soon as I've finished doing a performance, especially when it goes, I feel like it went really well, or an arrangement or a composition, or anything with Open Studio, whatever, like that, right when you're done is actually the time to evaluate and say, okay, what can I do better next time? Like
Exactly.
what do I need to work on to put myself in a position? And when it goes well, or like if you've got the real book, or you're playing the chord and having it transposed and it works and sounds good and sells a bunch of copies or whatever, you're sort of like, oh, I'm cool, I'll just do that next time. But you got to be disciplined to say, okay, next time I still want it to sound as good, but I want to actually be in that other key with some new voicings.
Yeah, I think that's good. But honestly, too, as a button on all of this, I can't say enough how important it is to practice in all 12 keys, to have them comfortable. You have to do it. It has to happen one way or another at some point, and the only way to do it is to actually practice in keys like E and G flat and A and B and D flat. Like, there's plenty of examples of tunes that are in these keys. You can just take tunes and go through these keys. You can take licks that you play or language that you... Voicings is super important. Super important.
Yeah, and I think with voicings, there's two kind of top-level ways to go about this, hitting all... Like say if you have, some nice voicings in E flat, I would actually recommend first going through the circle of... Like going through the flat keys, circle of fifth, circle of fourths, as opposed to going chromatic. At least with the first set, because with the piano, it's a little bit easier to comprehend how the shapes the shapes are going to change less as you go through the flat keys, as opposed to jumping between flat and sharp keys, so to speak. From a theoretical standpoint, there's some things that I think that are a little easier to understand from a chromatic standpoint. So the next one you do, you may want to switch to that, and then you also get a little bit of like both sides, as opposed to just being dogmatic about practicing. Does that make sense?
It does. I think there's actually ways of, any way you can practice all 12 keys differently, I think is good. So circle of fourth, is it cycle of fourth, circle of fifth?
It's both. I learned circle of fourths because I learned it on a circle.
Right.
And it goes around.
Cycle of fifth?
It cyclically
I thought
goes,
one was one, and no, maybe. Well,
chromatically,
chromatically,
down in that.
You could also do, sometimes I'll practice something on the whole tone scale, so like up to like C, D, E, G flat, A flat, B flat, and then go up a half step, B, D flat, E flat, F, G.
If you forget that last part, you're only going to be like, wow, this is cool. I went through all the keys, only 6 of them.
But the point is that, like,
awesome.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, cool, I'm good. But I like that. The point is different ways to kind of fool your brain so you don't get into these patterns so much that a
little chaos theory.
A little chaos so that you really lock into these memory wise. We talked about this with memory work episode we did. But so that when you're cycling through these, if you do it in a different way, every couple of times, you're going to remember them faster.
Big shout out to a gentleman that I learned about chaos theory about 15, 20 years ago, who actually has a jazz connection as well. The great mathematician Jeff Goldblum in the original Jurassic Park. When my older kids were first watching that when it came out, I remember he broke down
put
chaos
a drop
theory.
of water on your hand. Well, which way is it going to go?
Yeah,
That's my Jeff Goldblum. It's terrible.
When he was in that helicopter, I think stoned or whatever, talking about it. Anyway, but we diverge. Okay, so Chris in New Orleans, hopefully that gets you on the right path. And discipline practice for this. Take it slow as you go through either the circle of fifths, circle of fourths, whole tone, chromatic. But have some goals for yourself. I mean, I think if we think about adding one key per week would be very conservative in terms of like, at least a place to start.
Totally.
And look, in 11 weeks, you already know E flat. In 11 weeks, less than 3 months, you've got them all, at least with a subset of changes. But the other side of your question too is, you also have to develop some other voicing. So I think you can go through this systematically as far as learning them in different keys and getting the shapes together, but also introducing some new voicings. A lot of great resources. We've got a bunch on the blog.
I was going to say, Chris, where you could go is you'llhearit.com to our blog. There's a piano section where we have tons of great blog posts about all kinds of different voicings. You can get some ideas there.
Yep. And a bunch of other great folks online and in person. So
that was a great question.
That was good. Thank you. And I was wondering about his teacher from New Orleans. He said it was an arrangement teacher, a piano teacher. I wonder if that was Buddy Bolden. I guess that'd be going back a little far, probably.
Chris is very, very old. If that's the case, especially for a hip-hop producer.
Exactly. All right, well, nailed another one.
Yeah, don't forget to go to oxfordamerican.org/YHI. You can get a year subscription for $25, which is an incredible deal. Thank you to Oxford American for being our charter sponsor.
Yep, good stuff. Well, till tomorrow.
You'll hear it.